The wind carried the kind of silence that only comes after too many years of living alone. Hank Dallard had been a rancher once, a good one too, until time took the fire from his bones and left him with nothing but the creak of old wood and the sound of his cattle wandering in the dusk. The land stretched far beyond the eye could see, burned gold by the sun and hardened by memory. He'd built his ranch on sweat and stubbornness, and now it stood like a monument to a man who'd outlived everything he loved. His wife had passed in the fever years back. His sons gone to chase dreams that never wrote home. And Hank had learned to make peace with loneliness. That was, until the night foreshadows came walking out of the desert. It was just past midnight when his old hound started barking. Hank grabbed his rifle, thinking coyotes again. But when he stepped onto the porch, the sight before him made his heart stop cold. 4 Apache women, their dresses torn from travel, stood at the gate. Dust covered their faces, and fear flickered in their eyes like small fires fighting the wind. The eldest stepped forward, her voice trembling yet proud, and asked for shelter. Hank's fingers tightened on the rifle. He hadn't seen Apaches up close since the border troubles 20 years ago. And back then, both sides carried scars that never healed right. The world had taught him to be cautious, maybe even cold. But there was something in their faces, something weary and human, that made the old rancher lower his gun. He told them to come in, though his voice cracked like the boards beneath his boots. The night grew heavy as he lit the lantern inside the kitchen. Their names came slowly: Nita, Kaya, Loma, and Tala. Sisters, or close enough to be. They'd been driven from their camp after soldiers raided their village 2 days back. Hank listened in silence, his hands wrapped around a cup of coffee gone cold. The old ghosts inside him stirred, reminding him of every wrong he'd seen done in this land. He remembered his wife's words once, spoken under a full moon when life still had color. "This land don't belong to any of us. Hank, we just borrow it for a while." Maybe that's why he didn't turn them away. He found them blankets, food, and a place in the barn where the wind couldn't bite so deep. But as the night wore on, Hank realized he hadn't just opened his doors to strangers. He'd opened them to fate. Because when dawn came, riders appeared on the far ridge, 3, men in blue coats with rifles strapped across their saddles. The soldiers were hunting. Hank stood on his porch, the Apache women hidden inside, and watched the sun rise over a day that would change everything he thought he knew about right and wrong. The lead rider tipped his hat and asked if he'd seen anyone pass through. Hank felt his heart pound as he looked those men in the eyes and lied for the first time in years. "Ain't seen a soul," he said. The soldier studied him for a long moment, then nodded and rode on. When the dust from their horses settled, Hank turned back toward the barn, feeling the weight of what he'd done press deep on his chest. The women came out quietly, their eyes full of gratitude and fear. Nita, the eldest, whispered a soft thank you in broken English, and for the first time in a long while, Hank felt something stir in his soul that wasn't loneliness. He didn't know it yet, but by saving them, he'd set himself on a path that would force him to reckon with the past, confront his own guilt, and learn what it truly meant to be human in a land that had forgotten mercy. As the sun dipped low and the sky turned red with dust, Hank sat by the fence, staring into the horizon, knowing that the life he'd been living in silence was gone. Somewhere deep inside, he felt that nothing about his world or his heart would ever be the same again.